All right, we're live, everyone. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always. I'm with the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly today, and we have Brother Yahusha, Brother Masha, Sister Marissa is back with us for the first time. So I'm very happy about that. We got Sister,
Hallelujah.
I believe,
Hallelujah.
I think if this might be Sister Sally that just got on.
Hallelujah.
Sister Josie is with us as well. Sister Alyssa, Brother Masha's wife there. And we got Sister Milka, Brother Dennis, and I believe Shoshana is also on Dennis's line. And yeah, so the whole gang's practically here. So we are going to be doing Leviticus 14 to 15. Let me get my word software up here. Josie is with us as well.
Oh boy, we got background on my side.
Hey, Doug, too.
Yeah, that happens a lot. That I don't know why it does that playback weird thing. All right, here we go. Word software, what's going on with you, bud? Here.
Mama Sharon with us and Doug with us. Nevaeh, Alea, Moses. We got a full house, guys.
Yep. All right, here we go. Oh, thank goodness. I thought the word software was glitching for a second. All right, here we go. And I noticed something cool recently you can do with this. I never noticed before. You can change the background color. I want to see if I can get like a linen. See if we can get like almost like a scroll type of color. Yeah, let's go to custom colors. Something like that. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty close. Let's see here. All right. Okay, let me see if that will work. Apply. Yeah, it's pretty close. It makes it basically almost look like my sword. So I thought that was cool. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. There we go. It's almost like a scroll-like type of background. There we go. Let's see here. Okay. It's Leviticus 14. The rites and the sacrifices in cleansing the leper. And Yahuwah spoke with Moshe, saying, this shall be the law of the leper. On the day of his purification, he shall be brought to the priest. The priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, the leper shall be made whole of his leprosy. Then the priest shall direct that there be brought for him who is to be cleansed 2 birds alive, clean, and the wood of cedar and scarlet and hyssop. Interesting. It looks like the word wood is not in the Aramaic there. That's kind of interesting. So it seems to be lacking. Interesting. Oh yeah, let me change something around. I don't want the EVP plus. That's going to be a little confusing for people to read that are seeing the screen because the ABP plus does that like backwards type of wording. All right, so let me just do LXXV. Okay, let's start to Pentateuch. All right, that works. Okay. And the priest shall give directions. They shall take for him that is cleansed 2 clean live birds, cedar wood and spun scarlet and hyssop. Okay. We're at verse 5. And the priest shall give direction. They shall kill 1 bird over the earthen vessel over running water. Man, the Onkelos is very specific there. Spring water. It's interesting. And as for the living bird, he shall take it, and cedar wood, and the spun scarlet, and the hyssop, he shall dip them, and the living bird into the blood of the bird that was slain over running water. And he shall sprinkle 7 times upon him that was cleansed of his leprosy, and he shall be clean, and he shall let go the living bird into the field. Kind of similar to the Day of Atonement sacrifice, where you got one bird that's actually killed for the sacrifice and the other bird that's just let go. It's kind of interesting. And the man that has been cleansed shall wash his garments and shall shave off all his hair and shall wash himself in water and shall be clean. After that, he shall go into the camp and shall remain out of his house 7 days. All right, so I believe we're at what, Mom? Verse 7?
I think it's verse 9.
Verse 9, huh? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we just read verse 8, so we're at verse 9. Okay. So Leviticus 14, verse 9, we're at. And it shall come to pass on the 7th day, he shall shave off all his hair, his head and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair shall he shave, and he shall wash his garments and wash his body with water, and shall be clean. See, this is where context comes to play, because I know some people might be thinking, well, doesn't Torah say we're not supposed to shave our eyebrows and shave our head? Yeah, it says not to do that for the dead. Okay, so this obviously is different context. This is talking about doing it for the ritual of the leprosy.
How about for when people like get breast cancer or something and people shave their head or something?
Yeah, that's fine as long as they're not doing it mourning for the dead. That's okay. Like the actual command in Leviticus is don't shave your head for the dead. Don't mar the edges of your beard. That context is about mourning for the dead. Like, see, basically the pagans, they would be like pulling on their beard for their dead relatives. They would even consecrate locks of their hair to their gods. They were weird. They were weird guys. They were weird fellas, the pagans. The Wiccans were very weird, and today they're pretty weird. If you know, like the Druid culture, that's kind of what Yahuwah was warning Israel about. Like, don't do what they're doing. You see all these nations doing these weird customs, don't do what they're doing. And so that's the context about not shaving your beard. I know a lot of Jews think it's talking about don't ever shave your beard. That's not what Yahuwah is saying. Obviously, you see this here. He's given allowance to shave your beard for leprosy. So obviously, do not mar your beard does not mean don't ever shave. Obviously, because then Yahuwah would be contradicting himself. So obviously he's talking about a context in Leviticus 19. There's a specific context that it's talking about. It's talking about not to do it for the dead, not to rip off the edges of your beard for the dead. So anyway, so hopefully that explains that.
Would you say that psoriasis and eczema is considered leprosy?
Not exactly leprosy, but it's similar. What I said last week was like, I kind of was comparing the two just to explain what it would look like. Like leprosy, like is white, like, right, Mom? Like white spots. So I think the reason I compared them together last week was not saying that they're the same, but that to the look of the eye, they look similar. So leprosy is not lack of melanin. It has to do with white spots that someone would have, like an actual skin disease they would have on their skin, regardless of your skin color.
And those other things are redness on the skin.
Yeah, you got reddish coloring to it as well, like depending on what type of leprosy in Leviticus 13 that you would have. Some of it would have reddish dots to it. So yeah, but the reason I compared it to eczema, just to clarify why I said that last week, is because the coloring of it is very similar. It's pale white. It's like chalk white. So just to explain that, because I know some people out there are promoting this doctrine, that it's lack of melanin. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with your melanin. But anyway, so like a black person can have eczema or leprosy. I actually had a friend that passed away a couple of years ago. He was 100% African American, and he had eczema. So leprosy or eczema has nothing to do with your melanin whatsoever. So anyway, so we're at verse 10 here. It says, and on the 8th day he shall take 2 lambs without spot of a year old, and 1 ewe lamb without spot of a year old, 3/10 of fine flour for sacrifice and eatable oil, and 1 small cup of oil. So this is now talking about the sacrifice here, a baby lamb without spot. Okay. And the priest that cleanses shall present the man under purification, these before Yahuwah at the door of the tabernacle of witness. And the priest shall take 1 lamb, offer him for a trespass offering, and the cup of oil, and set them apart for a special offering before Yahuwah. Let's see here. It says, I think we're at verse 13 here.
Mhm.
And they shall kill the lamb in the place where they kill the whole burnt offerings and the sin offerings in the set apart place. For it is a sin offering as the trespass offering. It belongs to the priest. It is most set apart. Now, this is the key phrase here, belongs to the priest. So obviously the priest would eat part of it. He would eat part of that sacrifice. Like once they burn the actual animal on the altar, the meat that was left over, the priest would eat. The priest would have a choice portion of that offering. That was their inheritance, because they're not given cities like the Israelites are given. You'll see in Leviticus 25, even though they're given suburbs, the priests are given suburbs, they're not given the same type of inheritance the rest of Israel is given. So verse 14, and the priest shall take of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it on the tip of the right ear of the person under cleansing, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the great toe of his right foot. Now, we could honestly say that points to Yahusha there, because it's talking about being cleansed, and blood is being put on that person that has the infection, right? So, what Kepha, Peter says about Yahusha's blood, cleanses us from all sin. And believe it or not, leprosy is a plague. So it does have to do with sin. I think it's the next chapter, Mom, that it explains that, right? Where it talks about the mildew and all that. And it says for this plague of leprosy, so it calls leprosy a plague.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the priest shall take of the cup of oil and shall pour it upon his own left hand. Okay. And he shall dip with the finger of his right hand in some of the oil that is in his left hand. And he shall sprinkle with his finger 7 times before Yahuwah. And the remaining oil that is in his hand, the priest shall put on the tip of the right finger of him that is under cleansing, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the great toe of his right foot, and on the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the remaining oil that is on the hand of the priest shall put on the head of the cleansed, and the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahuwah. Okay, verse 19. And the priest shall sacrifice the sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for the person under purification from his sin. And afterwards, the priest shall slay the whole burnt offering. And the priest shall offer the whole burnt offering and the sacrifice upon the altar before Yahuwah. And the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be cleansed. Okay. And if he should be poor and cannot afford so much, he shall take 1 lamb for his transgression for a separate offering, so as to make propitiation, which, by the way, propitiation means atonement, for him, and 10th deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a sacrifice, and 1 cup of oil, which, by the way, isn't in the Greek New Testament, Mom, don't they use that same word for Yahusha? They say he's the propitiation for our sins.
Yeah, propitiation.
Propitiation. Yeah, I knew I was going to butcher that pronunciation there. I knew I was going to butcher that. Well, what do you want? I'm not Greek. All right. And 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons as he can afford, and the young, my bad, not the young, and the one shall be for a sin offering, and the other for a whole burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day to purify him to the priest to the door of the tabernacle, witness before Yahuwah. Obviously, that's very significant. The eighth day is used a lot in scripture as beginnings, symbolically in new beginnings. So in that context, it's, talking about that they'll be clean on the 8th day, or purified. The priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the cup of oil and place them for a set apart offering, set offering before Yahuwah. You know what connection I just got? I just thought about it, right? John in 1 John says that the anointing we received from Yahusha, that we don't need anyone to teach us. I find it interesting it says anointing, because you have the lamb being offered here with oil. I just find that interesting. And he shall slay the lamb of the trespass offering. The priest shall take of the blood of the trespass offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of him that is under purification. And on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil on his own left hand. And the priest shall sprinkle with the finger of his right hand some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before Yahuwah. Okay, and the priest shall put of the oil that is on his hand of the tip of the right ear of him that is under purification, on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot, on the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And that which is left of the oil which is on the hand of the priest, he shall put on the head of him that is purged, and the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahuwah. And he shall offer one of the turtle doves or of the young pigeons as he can afford it. And again, turtle doves, pigeons, definitely symbolizes Yahusha there. The one for a sin offering, the other for a whole burnt offering with grain offering. The priest shall make atonement before Yahuwah for him that is under purification. That's interesting. None of the other versions have the word purification there. It's interesting. Might make a little note there. Hold on a second, guys. I just want to write that down. That seems to be pretty significant. Leviticus 14:31, the Masoretic text, and the Targums omit the word purification there. Interesting. Okay. This is the law, verse 32. For him in whom is the plague of leprosy, and who cannot afford the offerings for his purification. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, whensoever you shall enter into the land of the Canaanites, which I give you for a possession, and I shall put the plague of leprosy in the houses of the land of your possession. Then the owner of the house shall come and report to the priest, saying, I have seen as it were a plague in the house. Okay. And the priest shall give orders to remove the furniture of the house. So now we're talking about mildew here, by the way. The type of leprosy that we're going to talk about is when you get like mildew on the walls of your house and all that. So verse 36, and the priest shall give orders to remove the furniture of the house before the priest comes in to see the plague. And none of the things in the house shall be unclean. And afterwards, the priest shall go in to examine the house, and he shall look on the plague. And behold, the plague is in the walls of the house, greenish or reddish cavities, and the appearance of them beneath the surface of the walls, And the priest shall come out of the house to the door of the house, and the priest shall separate the house 7 days. And the priest shall return on the 7th day and view the house, and behold, the plague is spread in the walls of the house. Then the priest shall give orders that they shall take away the stones in which the plague is, shall cast them out of the city into an unclean place. Interesting. And they shall scrape the house within round about, and shall pour out the dust scraped off outside the city into an unclean place. And they shall take the other scraped stones and put them into the place of the stones, and they shall take other plaster and plaster the house. And if the plague should return again and break out into the house after they have taken away the stones, after the house is scraped, and after it has been plastered, then the priest shall go in and see if the plague is spread in the house. It is a confirmed leprosy. In the house, it is unclean. And they shall take down the house, its timbers and its stones, and they shall carry out all the mortar without the city into an unclean place. And he that goes into the house at any time during a separation shall be unclean till evening. Okay. He that sleeps in the house shall wash his garments and be unclean till evening. He that eats in the house shall wash his garments and be unclean till evening. And if the priest shall arrive and enter and see, behold, the plague be not at all spread in the house after the house has been plastered, then the priest shall declare the house clean because the plague is healed. Now, what we need to keep in mind, guys, these are commands within a Levitical priesthood, right? There's no priest today. There's no priest to come into your house and inspect your house, right? So let's be honest here. So there's really no way to keep this part of the law of leprosy. The only thing you could really do, I mean, I guess, is if you own the house, you could like scrape the house. I guess that part of it you can keep, but you really can't keep the inspecting part.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So you yourself would have to replace the stones and the walls and the plaster and all that, and have to replaster it and all that. But you would have no priest to be able to inspect it every 7 days to make sure that the leprosy is gone or the mildew is gone. So it's very hard to really keep fully this commandment here in a Melchizedek priesthood. It's very hard. So you shall purify the house 2 clean living birds, cedar wood. Again, this part you can't keep either, by the way, because they have to offer a sacrifice right here. Verse 49 says, he shall take to purify the house 2 clean living birds and cedar wood and spun scarlet and hyssop, and he shall slay the one bird in the earthen vessel over the running water. And he shall take the cedar wood and spun scarlet and the hyssop and the living bird, and shall dip it into the blood of the bird slain over running water, and with them he shall sprinkle the house 7 times. Obviously, this cannot be executed in a Melchizedek priesthood. And he shall purify the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the spun scarlet. And he shall let the living bird go out of the city into the field, and shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. Now again, Yahusha is the atonement of our sins. So technically, he would replace the whole sacrifice of the doves or the pigeons here. But you still have the problem with inspecting the house. I don't think we're qualified to be inspecting our own house in the context of this commandment. So that still leaves the issue of you have no priest to inspect the house. The law concerning every plague of leprosy and scurf, the leprosy of a garment and of a house and a sore and of a clear spot and of a shining one, and of declaring in what day it is clean, unclean, my bad, not clean, unclean, and in what day it shall be purged. This is the law of leprosy. Now, what I want to say, I'm going to let Sister Marissa go, but I just want to expound that to understand the whole law of leprosy here. It's not just in one chapter. You have to go back to 14, 13, I think what we just read, was that 14?
Yeah.
So we would have to go back to 13
Yeah, 13.
to see what he has to say about your garments, if you have leprosy in your garments and all that. So I would really recommend, if you're still a little confused about this law of leprosy, go back to 13 and then reread this chapter, because you're probably going to get confused being like, what is he talking about, the garment? So go ahead, Sister Marissa.
Okay, so you said that mildew in the house is leprosy. Can you expound on that? This is the first time.
Like when you get a greenish, reddish spot on the wall, that would be leprosy. What this chapter is calling leprosy on the wall of your house. So it would be very visible, though. It would be a very visible, like greenish pale, like a pale green, right, Mom? Like a very grayish green, like grayish green and a reddish type of rash on the wall. Like that's how it would look. And you should usually, people that have that, usually it's because you have mold as well.
Mold, yes.
I wanted to say that too,
Yes.
to expound on that. You get it from mold as well, even though it is a plague, and Yahuwah himself is saying this is a plague because of sin. The scientific reason you get it is because of mold. Like you'll get, if you don't air out your shower a lot,
Yeah.
if like you close your door when taking a shower all the time, and the bathroom's too small and the walls are too thin, like trust me, I live in an apartment, so I know what I'm talking about. We've had mildew, 2-3 years ago, Mom, when we lived in East Brunswick in our apartment. So yeah, go ahead.
Douglas was down visiting Shoshana.
Yeah, 2017
year.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I was actually in Torah,
No.
but I was starting to learn about certain things. And I noticed one day that it was greenish gray on the walls, I said, and I happen to be allergic to mold. So within the asthma whole bit, I mean, I could really get sick from this. So I mentioned it to the super, and of course they did nothing. So I went to a friend of mine who actually was a longtime plumber, and he had a solution. And he gave me some of this solution, and I got up on a ladder and I sprayed the entire wall and cleaned it, and it came right off. It was beautiful what he gave me. And then after really talking to the apartment complex over and over and over again, and practically threatening them with a health suit, because they came and repainted the entire bathroom. So that's kind of my little story on this. But honestly, I don't know what you would do if you were living in an apartment. You can't very well tear it down. But
So mildew comes from a curse? Is that, because leprosy is a plague, right? But does that mean that if a person has mildew in their home?
No, not necessarily, because how this came about was because, see, in this bathroom, there was only a very, very small little window. They had no fan there. If there's a fan, then it would have circulated the air. But this came about because mold builds up from not having sufficient air supply. So the mildew came about from the actual mold. So that's kind of my story. But I'm sure it didn't come from a curse, but. So that's kind of how we dealt with it, but
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's important to keep in mind this command was given in a Levitical priesthood. So I think we can't ignore that. You have to have Levitical priests to fully keep this command. Okay, so I'm warning brothers and sisters: don't go crazy and start breaking down walls. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Don't go crazy and ignore the fact that you need Levites to fully keep this command. So let's not go crazy here.
Yeah.
So some of the things in the Torah you cannot do in captivity. We are in a type of Babylon right now. We cannot do certain things. I can assure you, Daniel was not breaking down walls and
It wasn't his property.
it wasn't his property. It wasn't his house.
Right.
The context here has to be that the person that's breaking down the walls that the leprosy are on, it's their own home that they're doing that to. They're not doing that to a landlord's property, So I think we got to keep all that in context. So I would not advise people that are renting apartments or renting rooms anywhere do such things. I would not advise that. So I think we need to keep everything in context. I don't believe we can fully keep this law until the millennium comes, really. A lot of the things in this, I don't think are applicable. Even when you look at the sacrifice, they had to give a sacrifice in this law. Now, obviously, Yahusha did once and for all sin sacrifices. So technically, he replaces the turtle dove and all that. So I don't think that matters too much. But there's a lot of laws where you have burnt offerings mentioned, which are not sin offerings. They're a burnt offering not necessarily is a sin sacrifice. You can have a burnt offering that's a peace offering. So those will be in the kingdom. You are going to see certain sacrifices come back in the millennium. You're going to see peace offerings come back, whole burnt offerings come back, burnt offerings come back, So I would chalk this up to this command is most likely and probably we can't do this today right now. Maybe you could get rid of the mildew, that part of it, but the majority of this command depends upon the Levitical priesthood in the land. And you're not going to be able to do that in a heavenly Melchizedek priesthood. It's going to be impossible. So just keeping everything in context here. It is important to know these things because in the kingdom, we will be doing these things. When there's a Levitical priesthood again, we will be doing these things. So just for those that might be wondering, well, if we can't do this, why should we be reading about it? Well, we're going to be doing it when he returns.
That's right.
So that's why we need to know these things. But anyway,
All
It's
in
called practice.
preparation.
Yeah, it's
All in
practicing.
preparation, Brother Doug.
Yep.
Dress rehearsal.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Sister Josie hit it on the head, and so did Sister Sadia. What did you say, Sadia? I just caught the end of what you said.
It's called practicing. We are rehearsing for the time that it's going to come, and we're going to be doing that.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So these are laws that we need to know for the millennium because, the way the kingdom is going to work is those that teach, those that are in the roles that the apostles are in, they're going to be teachers because they know all this stuff. The reason Yahusha said you're going to be, ruling over the 12 tribes with me in the kingdom is because the 12 apostles were like, by that point, they were experts in the Torah. See, a lot of people don't understand this. They think the apostles were dumb. They weren't.
No, they weren't.
They were all Hebrews that knew their Torah through and through. So these guys are going to be the leaders in the millennium. They're going to be the ones teaching people, be like, listen, you guys need to listen to me. I know you guys think you know everything. I know you little Hebrews guys think you know everything, but listen, and they're going to be the leaders, Matthew, Luke, John, Paul, Mark, all these guys are going to be, ruling with Messiah, and they're going to be teaching us, So that's knowing all this is going to help people that will be part of the 144,000. Those of the 144,000 will need to know these things. That's another reason to study this stuff. If you want to be part of the bride, you need to know this stuff because you're going to be the teacher. You're going to be the instructor. So anyone that tells you there's no more teachers, you tell them to read the book of Jeremiah. Tell them to read Ezekiel and prophecy, where Yahuwah says he's going to pick people to instruct them. Okay, I'm going to raise up shepherds for you. So, we can't be taking one verse out of context from 1 John saying, oh, you don't need any more teachers. I hear that all the time. Yeah, we do still need teachers because there's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of Hebraic culture we don't know. We're still reading the scriptures from a Greco-Roman mindset that's causing us to be blinded. Go ahead, brother Yehusha.
Can you send those for the Tanakh scriptures in Jeremiah and the other one you said
Yeah,
to me?
Yeah.
Not
you
like
can find it right
the
now.
Zoom, but in the Signal
I have it
or
on the
the
tip of my
Telegram.
tongue. Yeah, I can send it to you, bro. Let me see. Let me try to find it right now. It says, "I will raise up for you shepherds," and I think it says even according to the desire of my heart. This is Yahuwah saying this. I will raise up shepherds. Yep. Yeah, thanks AI for listening to me. Oh, that's great. Before I even got done typing, Jeremiah 3:15. I'll give you this one.
They're learning, brother. They're learning.
Yeah, AI. I don't like this, man. Weirdo. It listens to my voice and it's got a suggestion already up before I can even type the whole thing.
Freaky.
So maybe they're following Torah.
I don't know, man.
Okay,
Let's see
Yahuwah
here.
covers his word.
Let's see here. So Jeremiah 3:15 is the first one where clearly, if you think John is saying there's going to be no more teachers, you have the New Testament contradicting prophecy. If you take that one verse out of context. So it literally says, "Then I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will lead you with knowledge and understanding." So again, this is future, guys. This is not even right now. This is future. This is in the millennium, okay? Dude, he's still picking shepherds. Not everyone knows him yet, okay? And I'm going to give this one to Brother Yehusha's ammo as well from Ezekiel, where it talks about they will all know me. If you actually look at it in context, this is way, way, way later. This is like pretty much, I would say you're either talking about this is after we already seen him as he is, or even in the new heaven, new earth, you could say. So this is where people get this from too. Oh, we don't need teachers anymore. First of all, this is way in the future. At the minimum, this would be at some point in the millennium when they've already known Yahuwah at that point. Jeremiah 31:34. No longer will they teach their brother, neighbor, say to one another, know Yahuwah, because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares Yahuwah, for I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. So this is future. This would be the fulfillment of the new covenant, which we're not fully into the new covenant yet. We're at the point where we've just entered in it. We've been given the seal for the day of redemption, but we don't fully know Yahuwah. If someone says to you today, "Oh, I fully know Yahuwah," nah, you need to run from them. They're lying to themselves. They don't fully know him.
We know in part, brother. We know in part. That's what the word says.
Yeah. So as for right now, neither one of these verses can support someone saying First John says we don't need any teachers today. Okay, both of these verses show that doesn't happen until some point into the millennium. Go ahead, Brother Yehusha.
Just on that, where you say that if someone says they fully know Yahuwah, they're lying to themselves. Kind of on that, but also because I hear like a lot of people like saying, "Oh, that's easy to understand." Like you should be able to understand that. There's a lot of things that are confusing, and if someone doesn't understand it, and you do, and you're knocking someone for not understanding something, because I've been there. I don't know, that what you said just kind of reminded me of that, and I just wanted to remind everyone that if someone doesn't understand something, it's not because they're stupid or because you're smarter or you have something that they don't have. It's because Yahuwah has allowed you to understand it to begin with, and he hasn't allowed them to understand it. That doesn't make you any better than them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that was just what came to mind.
Absolutely.
hallelujah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's so
Second
true.
emotion.
That's so true. Yeah, we all need to just remember to, the way we correct someone has to be done in love. I think we've gotten down pat the correcting part, but how to correct is the problem. And I'm including myself in that, so I'm not poking fingers at any one person for not doing it in love. I've done
I
it.
fall majorly short.
So,
Me too.
But this is important. These two verses show, though, that when someone tells you First John says, "Oh, we don't need a teacher because we have His anointing," be like, you might want to go to prophecy, because John can't contradict Jeremiah. He can't contradict Jeremiah. He can't contradict Ezekiel 36, 26 to 27, which is again a millennial context, which also says they will know Him. Everyone thinks we're fully into the new covenant, but if you actually look at the context, we're not fully into the new covenant yet. He's going to give us physical new hearts. This is not just spiritual. If you actually look at these scriptures here, it says, I will give you a new heart, put a new spirit in you, and I will remove the heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Now, as far as I know, every human on this earth right now has their original heart of flesh. Mm-hmm. They don't have a new heart of flesh, right? Physically. I think we all can agree on that. So obviously this is not fully fulfilled. So that means that part of this still has to be filled, which means that we don't really know Him fully. And we're not even fully following His commandments yet, because this prophecy is fulfilled when He gives us a new heart of flesh, which wouldn't happen until the resurrection, to be honest. That wouldn't even happen until He returns, because when He returns, we're given new bodies. We don't have bodies of flesh anymore. We have spirit bodies, physical bodies, yes, but they're bodies like the angels have. And if you think about it, in heaven, right, the angels don't sin, right? There's no sin in them. They're perfect, just like, the original creation was. So again, if anyone's going to say, well, we're fully in this right now, I would disagree fully, because once you get to verse 27, I'm sorry, we're not there yet. It even says, I think in the King James, it's a lot more specific. It says, I will cause you, meaning Yahuwah, will cause you to keep my laws. So no longer is it free will, really. It's like, He's like, you know what? I'm going to make you keep my Torah. I'm tired of you guys messing up. So He's removing actually our sinful flesh. If you look in context with what it says in older versions, like the King James, it will say, I will cause you, not we, I will cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my right rulings and do them. So Yahuwah is taking out all that sinful flesh at that point. Like, I'm not going to let you mess up anymore. Nope. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I don't know if that's a new hand or old hand.
No.
Yeah, so that's another verse I can give that someone, will try to say, well, we don't need teachers. Obviously, there's multiple prophecies that show that we still have these prophecies to be fulfilled. And even with these prophecies, there's shepherds in the land. So that's the reason I'm bringing that up, because many people don't realize that if John is creating a new doctrine that you don't need to be instructed by your sister, then you have some issues, because John would then be contradicting all the prophets. And John doesn't do that. John is obviously going to agree with Jeremiah
for the day.
Really? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so hold on a second, got a little background noise. But anyway, so end of that little rabbit hole there. I just wanted to show you guys what Scripture says about that, whether we still need instructors or shepherds today. So anyway, all right, Mom, would you like to read Leviticus 15?
Sure. Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when any man has a bodily discharge, the discharge is unclean. whether it continues flowing from his body or is blocked. It will make him unclean. This is how his discharge will bring about uncleanliness. Any bed the man with a discharge lies on will be unclean, and anything he sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whoever sits on anything that the man with a discharge sat on must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches the man who has a discharge must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. If the man with the discharge spits on someone who is clean, that person must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Everything the man sits on when riding will be unclean, and whoever touches any of the things that were under him will be unclean till evening, and whoever picks up those things must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Anyone the man with a discharge touches without rinsing his hands with water must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. A clay pot that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he is to count off 7 days for his ceremonial cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with fresh water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and come before Yahuwah to the entrance of the tabernacle and give them to the priest. The priest is to sacrifice them, the one for a sin offering, the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement before Yahuwah for the man because of his discharge. When a man has an emission of semen, he must bathe his whole body with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed with water, and it will be unclean till evening. When a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both must bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. When a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean, and anything she sits on will be unclean. Whoever touches her bed must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches anything she sits on must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. Whether it is the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, he will be unclean till evening. If a man lies with her and her monthly flow touches him, he will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time other than her monthly period, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge, just as in the days of her period. Any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean, as is her bed during her monthly period. And anything she sits on will be unclean, as during her period. Whoever touches them will be unclean. He must wash his clothes and bathe with water, and he will be unclean till evening. When she is cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days, and after that she will be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day, she must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the tabernacle, at the entrance of the tabernacle. The priest is to sacrifice one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement for her before Yahuwah for the uncleanness of her discharge. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that make them unclean. so they will not die in their uncleanness for defiling my dwelling place, which is among them. These are the regulations for a man with a discharge, for anyone made unclean by an emission of semen, for a woman in her monthly period, for a man or a woman with a discharge, and for a man who lies with a woman who is ceremonially unclean.
Mhm. No, also, for those of us that are trying to witness to brothers and sisters about when a day starts, notice how everything ends at what? Evening. You're clean at evening. You're clean again at evening.
Yeah.
If a day starts at sunrise, all this means nothing. Because then you got to wait till the following morning to be clean, right? If that's the case, why would it be at evening if the day doesn't start at evening? See, these are things that we should be paying attention to until evening, until evening, until evening, every time. There's a reason he says that like 20 different times in this chapter. He's trying to let us know, listen, guys, this is the restart period. Earth to McFly, this is when a day starts. Sunset, okay? Until evening, until evening.
That's concrete. That is so concrete, unreal. There's a lot of teachings going on right now. A lot of grounded people are falling for this morning stuff.
Yeah.
So just be ready and listen to the word, because it is explaining to us right now, live, what the word says about the day, when it starts and when it ends.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you see this with the feast too. The only way to keep the Day of Atonement correctly is you have to keep it the 9th at sunset to the 10th at sunset to have a 24-hour period.
Two.
If you keep it morning to morning, there's no way you're gonna have the Day of Atonement from the 9th to the 10th. There's no way to do that. I mean, you could, but that doesn't really make much sense, because literally in the scripture it says the 9th at evening is the Day of Atonement. And then in another verse it says at the 10th of the month is the Day of Atonement. So the only way you're going to keep the Day of Atonement correctly is evening to evening. And other feasts is evening to evening. There's no other way. So if you believe in that doctrine of morning to morning or morning to evening, whatever, because there's multiple different false doctrines with that, I don't know how you're going to observe any of the feast days. I really don't know, because 3 different feast days, or at least 2 different feast days I know of, Passover and a Day of Atonement, both start at the setting of the sun. Both of them. You can't get Passover correctly if you do morning to evening or morning to morning. You're not going to get it correctly. By the way, funny to note, I know this is kind of a rabbit trail, but I found historical proof. The reason the Jews today keep Passover on the wrong day is because they started going by the Greeks in the Hellenization period, and they started changing the character to cater to the pagans. So they started doing morning to morning stuff or whatever. So that's how they get the 15th of Aviv rather than the 14th. And so they thought that, oh, well, we're still technically keeping it on the 14th, but that eventually evolved into what we have modern Judaism today, where they don't eat the lamb on the first night. They keep it on the first day of unleavened bread, which is not what the command says. So that's a lot of these false doctrines are not new. There's nothing new under the sun. Like these doctrines go way, 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 way back. Matter of fact, there's a verse from Amos that warns us. I just want to read this real quick before I expound on this chapter that we just read. There's an interesting verse in Amos that talks about adopting false Sabbaths, and that even in the day of Amos, Israel was adopting incorrect Sabbaths. So this is nothing new with the whole lunar Sabbath, morning to evening, morning to morning. This is nothing new. Yahuwah's people, I was just telling my mom today, we as Yahuwah's people, we have a problem with improvising. We never like to just go with who it gives us. We feel like we need to improvise. And that seems to be the problem. So let's see here. Why can't I find it? Oh, I know why. Because I'm not searching in the LXX. That's why. Okay. So this phrase is actually omitted in the Masoretic, and it's Amos 6, verse 3. It says, "You who are approaching the evil day, who are drawing near and adopting false Sabbaths." So again, in Amos's day, according to the Septuagint, in Amos's day, they were adopting false Sabbaths and not keeping the Sabbath correctly. So, and people could say, well, how do you know that it could be talking about lunar Sabbath and this other type of Sabbath and that other type of Sabbath? Well, as far as the lunar Sabbath goes, I'm not trying to go on a big rabbit hole, but there's tons of pages. Like I think you can even find it on Encyclopedia Britannica. Lunar Sabbath goes back to Babylon. It was not a belief system of the Hebrews. The Hebrews did not go for the moon for Sabbaths. So that's common sense. They obviously adopted stuff close to their full apostasy when they were sent to Babylon, and then after they came back from Babylon, they started adopting things. Once the Hellenization period happened, they started adopting Greek thought process and wanted to be like the Greek philosophers. And this is why Paul, in his letter, says, don't let anyone spoil you through vain philosophy and deceit, and not according to Messiah. So Paul was actually warning us against like the philosophers of his time. And, even today you got philosophy. That, believe it or not, that's what psychiatry is.
Yeah.
It's vain philosophy. Sigmund Freud, all these guys, philosophers. They're just vain philosophers that really
Theories, that's all.
Theories of this, theories of that. So anyway, so just wanted to explain that there's nothing new. So when you're combating false belief systems like that, it's nothing new. You got to understand that it's, that there's an issue with the flesh, why we get tied up in these weird doctrines. It has to do with the flesh and just wanting to cater to our flesh and what feels easy. Because 12-hour Sabbath is 10 times easier than keeping a whole 24-hour Sabbath. I can see that as catering to the flesh. Your flesh doesn't want to have to dedicate a whole 24 hours to the Father. As harsh as that sounds, that's how our indwelling flesh is. We need to understand from the fall, we're all born into sin. Our bodies have indwelling sin genetically in them. So you're constantly warring against your flesh, and your flesh is going to want you to do something that's easy. So if you ever wonder like why a doctrine like that, the morning to evening Sabbath and 12-hour day is so popular, it's because it's easy. It's easy to only keep a half a day of a Sabbath. It's easy to do stuff like that. So it takes real denial of your flesh to keep a whole day for a Sabbath. It takes you really impaling your flesh to do that. So this is why doctrines like that get popular, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, because it caters to our flesh and a lot of other false doctrines, but anyway, go ahead, brother Yahusha. Sorry, I couldn't, your hand was hidden on my screen. I don't know if that's an old hand, new hand, but yeah, I didn't see that before. It was hidden on the corner of my screen. So anyway, we're going to end this recording here, and we're just going to do a reading of Job 5-6, and that will be it for today. So I'm going to end this recording real quick, and we'll be right back on. All right, so let me just end this live